to curb abusive policing, promising if he returns to the White House to rein in federal oversight of local law enforcement and empower officers to aggressively clean up, he calls it, American cities. Among the changes Trump has promoted has been allowing the use of stop and frisk to interrogate suspects, rescinding a Biden administration ban on the transfer of military equipment to local police departments, and deputizing local officers to enforce immigration laws, and even deploying the National Guard to fight crime. A federal judge in Texas has frozen President Joe Biden's attempt to offer a path to citizenship to hundreds of thousands of immigrants who are married to U.S. citizens and living in the U.S. illegally, dealing a blow to a program the administration has touted as a key pro-family initiative. U.S. District Judge J. Campbell Barker sided with Texas and 15 other Republican-led states that sued to block the program. They argued Biden's move was an abuse of executive authority that sought to rewrite U.S. immigration laws. And federal prosecutors asked an appeals court on yesterday to restore Donald Trump's classified documents case, pushing back on the former president's claims that Jack Smith's appointment as a special counsel violated the Constitution. The attorney general validly appointed the special counsel, who is also properly funded. That's according to Assistant Special Counsel James Pierce, a member of Smith's team. He wrote this in a brief filed with the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. He went on to say, in ruling otherwise, the district court deviated from binding Supreme Court precedent, misconstrued the statutes that authorized the special counsel's appointments, and took inadequate account of the long-standing history of attorney general appointments of special counsels. And Donald Trump plans to name his former rival, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, a one-time Democrat, as honorary co-chairs of a presidential transition team that will help him select the policies and personnel of any second Trump administration. And Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg says senior Biden administration officials pressured him and Facebook to censor some COVID-19 content during the pandemic and vowed that the social media giant would push back if faced such demands again today. Now, note Zuckerberg has tried to change the company's perception on the right, going on podcaster Joe Rogan's show in 2022 and complimenting Republican nominee Donald Trump's response to an assassination attempt as badass. He sent Monday's letter to the House Judiciary Committee, whose chairman is a longtime Trump ally, Joe Jordan. Well, Jim Jordan, that is. So Mark Zuckerberg saying that Facebook, Meta, is not biased towards the left. And to prove it, he is making his rounds on Republican media and Republican-leaning media and complimenting Donald Trump. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by two veteran political and strategist journalist, Sharon Reed. She is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, and she's also a host on In the Black Network. And also joining me is Dr. Niambi Carter. She is a professor. She's also an author. She's at the University of Maryland these days. I'm so glad to be in conversation with both Sharon Reed and Dr. Carter. A lot has happened since we last were in conversation together. So lots to catch up on in terms of today's breaking and trending news, as well as the joy that many people are still experiencing as a result of the DNC. And in hour two, you know what we do. We go deep, we dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, a lot of talk has been on the internet, particularly on X, formerly known as Twitter, about Tim Walz. That's the governor from the great state of Minnesota who was selected by Kamala Harris to be her running mate. We heard Tim Walz on Wednesday night of the convention. He introduced himself, his wife Gwen, his children, his daughter, his son Gus, and we got to learn a little bit more about Coach Walz, coaching a football team, taking that team to a state championship, and how much he did for the players on that team. And there's been a recent article, lots of articles really, and one in particular in the Washington Post about the women, Black women in particular, who have helped to shape Tim Walz and to make him into the elected official, the politician that he is today. The Washington Post did a big story on how Black women shaped Walz's politics after the death of George Floyd. This article says that these women prodded him and they prayed with him. And in the end, some say the Minnesota governor left them disappointed, that they were not happy with some of his decisions. Now, Tashara Garraway, she is one of the voices that was the most vocal. She was one of the people that was most vocal, I should say, in communicating with Walz and working with him and praying with him. Tashara has been on the show before. She's got a big picture on the front of this Washington Post story. She lost her significant other to a tragic death and has been an advocate around police brutality ever since the death of her partner. And she's been on the front lines in Minnesota working on behalf of so many other families who've lost loved ones to police violence. She was actually out days after George Floyd had been murdered in Minneapolis. Many protesters were out with her. She was speaking on the mic, talking about the need for police reform, the need to hold police officers accountable. And she was lifting up the names of so many other African-American men and women who had been killed by police as they were outside at this protest. Tim Walz was inside the governor's mansion. He heard the protest. He came outside, and Tashara walked away from the microphone and she went over and had a conversation with Tim Walz. And it was that interaction with the governor that led to a series of conversations, a series of meetings. And Tashara invited the governor of Minnesota, I should say, Tim Walz, to meet with the families who had lost loved ones to police violence. And Walz took Tashara up on that invitation. And then there's a lot of conversations about what happened after that. And this article, the Washington Post article, concludes that a lot of these Black women, as I said, were left disappointed. Now, many folks are blaming Tim Walz for not doing enough and not quelling the protests after George Floyd's murder. There was a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who said that Walz sat by and let Minneapolis burn. Also, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan posted that Walz let rioters and looters burn a police station to the ground in 2020. The Minnesota Republican Party chair, David Hahn, said Walz did nothing to stop the riots. So as many African Americans are crediting Walz for having a compassionate approach to protesters after George Floyd's murder and taking steps to try to engage with and to initiate police reform, there are folks not very happy with Governor Walz, particularly Republicans who are trying to paint him as soft on crime, saying that he did not do enough in that situation and that he's responsible for the loss of millions and millions of dollars in property damage that occurred because they say he did not act quickly enough. So I decided, we're getting two different stories of Black women who prayed with him, some saying they weren't satisfied with what he did. We have the Republicans saying that he did nothing, that he was soft on crime. So when we have stories like that in the media, conflicting stories, that's what we do here at Areva Martin in Real Time. We go behind those headlines and we talk to the people who are involved in these stories to give you the truth so you can have a better understanding of what this, in this case, what this controversy is about. So I'm excited because in hour two, I'm going to be talking to Tashara Garraway. She's that activist that's on the front page of that Washington Post story. She's that activist that went up to Governor Walz and said, hey, I want you to meet our families. I want you to experience the pain that these families have experienced. I want you to know it firsthand. Also joining us in hour two is going to be Jerome Richardson. He's also an activist on the ground in Minneapolis. He has been involved in supporting families who have been, victimized by police violence. And in this hour two, Nakia Levy Armstrong is going to join us. She's a civil rights attorney in Minneapolis. She's the former president of the NAACP. She's also the woman that actually called the police chief in Minneapolis as the Minneapolis Public Relations Department for its police department was issuing a statement about George Floyd's death that was just plain wrong, factually inaccurate. It was Nakima who had the cell phone number of the police chief, who called him to tell him that he had a problem, that he had a huge problem, and to alert him to the videotape that has now been seen by hundreds of millions of people of George Floyd being literally murdered by Minneapolis Police Department's officers. So Nakia Levy Armstrong is going to join us. We have these three dynamic activists who were on the ground during the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, who are going to tell us exactly what Tim Walz did, what Tim Walz did not do, and help us have a better understanding of his record on police violence, on his record on the kind of police misconduct that we've seen in many cities across this country. So make sure you stick around for an hour or two. This is going to be a really riveting panel discussion with these activists as Walz is introducing himself to the country, as he is stomping for the Harris-Walz ticket. This issue of how he handled the aftermath of George Floyd is going to continue to be used by some to discredit him and by others to lift him up and to support him as the best choice for Vice President Kamala Harris, as they both try to restore joy and hope to a country that has felt pretty hopeless. So when we come forward, we're going to tackle some of today's breaking and trending news with my expert contributors, Sharon Reed and Dr. Niambi Carter. And in hour two, going to be talking to activists on the ground in Minneapolis about Tim Walz and his record on police violence. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Martha was ready to switch to a career in IT.
There's always a need for IT specialists, especially with AI coming out and cybersecurity. It's practically recession-proof.
My Computer Career even provides job placement help.
The career specialists, they're very helpful. They care about you as a person. You're not just a number to them. I would recommend My Computer Career wholeheartedly to anyone.
Take the free career evaluation today. Become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at mycomputercareer.edu.
What's wrong?
My travel rewards card didn't earn enough miles for my vacation.
Are you crying? Are you crying because of that other credit card?
Uh-huh.
Well, switch to the Capital One Venture card. Venture lets you redeem miles on any travel purchase.
Really?
Yep, and you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every single day. The Capital One Venture card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this hour, Sharon Reed, Emmy Award-winning journalist, is joining us, as well as Dr. Niambi Carter, a professor at the University of Maryland. Sharon, I have really wanted to talk with you post the DNC convention, really about the way legacy media has been covering Kamala Harris. It seems like legacy media is upset because Kamala Harris is not following their orders, their instructions, their playbook. They want her to sit down and do an interview with one of the, the networks, one of the big cable stations, and she won't. She hasn't. She's been going around the country talking to voters, and they're really slamming her, suggesting that she's doing this because she's afraid that she might fumble in an interview, that she can only, be at her best when she's scripted on a teleprompter, and saying that the American people won't trust her until she sits down and answers these questions from some veteran journalist. Yet her poll numbers are going up, yet the number of people volunteering going up exponentially. The amount of money being raised is record breaking. Like, she's raised the most money than any political candidate in the history of political candidates in 1 month. But legacy media doesn't think that's enough.
Because they think they run the world, and any it's really why viewership is going down, even in these unprecedented times, this unprecedented campaign season. Listen, when Donald Trump decided to go directly to the people, even with lies on then Twitter, now X, the media that you speak of branded him pretty much a genius and said, well, isn't that clever? He's going directly to the people. But when she does what is, I don't know, whether we like it or not, good campaign strategy, it's suddenly a problem. If anybody believes a former attorney general of the great state of California, a VP for 4 years coming up on, and now the top of the ticket for the Democrats, who, listen, not everybody wanted her there. They're pretending now that everybody was just behind her all the way, is afraid to do an interview with the mainstream media. I got a bridge to sell you. Okay, turn over your retirement account and the bridge is all yours. You can go across it anytime you want after you pay a toll. This is silly, Areva. It is actually very silly. And they're trying to make her pay. Late breaking, she will sit down with Dana Bash, her and Tim Walz. Okay, great. And I think she's a great reporter. Dana's great. But this notion, this narrative that the media has lifted from Donald Trump and his surrogates and others who lie routinely is very tiresome. The other thing is, anybody with an iPhone is a reporter now. I understand that people who do what I do, they've hated that. I told my colleagues this for a very long time. Everybody's a reporter. You better start respecting people. This is a blue collar profession. So, sorry, it's a 70 some days, if that, it might be 69 now, to the finish line. It's called strategy. You don't tell her what to do. She's going to try to do her best to win this campaign on behalf of the American people.
Yeah, you're right. CNN is reporting that Dana Bash will conduct an interview, which is set to air at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be both Harris and Walz sitting down. She has been facing, Professor Carter, this mounting pressure to sit down for this interview. She said she would. She said, look, I just got this job July 21st. I needed to put together a campaign team, needed to re-engage donors. There's a lot of work to do in this condensed period. But what do you make as a professor, who studied politics, who's taught politics and history, what is becoming this kind of unconventional campaign that does seem to be creating issues for those that want to see her be a more traditional candidate. We had 250 content creators at the DNC who were, as Sharon said, individual journalists who were doing interviews of top party leaders, of elected officials, and who were delivering that news back, those interviews, to their audiences on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, not on cable news, not on network news. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz seem to be defying the way these traditional campaigns are run.
Well, listen, I have to agree with Sharon. I mean, Sharon certainly knows the media much better than I, but I think she's exactly right, which is you want to reach people, you have to go where the people are. I mean, lagging with younger voters has been an issue, not just with Democrats, but Republicans as well, right? They're much less likely to identify with party. And so when you look at some of these creators, and I've seen some of them on TikTok, this is who people watch. This is how young people get their news and their information increasingly. Going on CNN or MSNBC or any of these media outlets is not going to do you any favors with that demographic. I would also say, given the way that she has been talked about, by the newspapers, whether that's the headlines, etc. I mean, it's almost like they're demanding her to talk to them. Everybody is. I mean, even I think it was even Cornel West, who's also running, suggested like she wouldn't even talk to me. And I'm like, why would she? She has a campaign to run and a campaign to win. Quite frankly, why would she talk to you? You're not a co-partisan. I mean, like, what do you want from her? And so it's sort of like the media was almost like demanding that she speak to them. But she's shown that she's actually doing quite well without talking to you. If I was her, I would be concerned how these people are going to write headlines about me. And let's be clear, it hasn't stopped them from writing stories about her. So clearly her giving you a sit down is more about the prestige of that. Who is the first person to get that bump from being able to land this interview? But if I'm her, I'm looking at my poll numbers and saying, you know what? I'm not doing this because, I mean, really, who is she talking to? The people who are not convinced, the people who aren't going to vote for her anyway. I mean, sure, there are a lot of people who will hate watch it. But I don't even know that the people who are still saying, I'm not sure about a Kamala Harris are going to be persuaded by an interview she does with Dana Bash or anyone else. So I actually think it's smart strategy to avoid mainstream media as long as she can. And I don't want to say avoid because it makes it like she's hiding. She just doesn't need them in the same way that people needed these folks even a decade ago. Social media has done a lot to change the landscape.
Yeah, and it's so interesting.
I just tell you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Reva. I hate interrupting you, but I'm dying to tell you what the ratings are at 9 o'clock on CNN. 25 to 54 is the demo. 117,000 people. Now, come on. Now, total viewers, they might get 750,000. But in terms of TikTokers and others who routinely get in the millions with their videos, and I'm not suggesting that when they sit down, the interview won't be beamed out and go other places and be cut up, sparse, whatever. But I mean, I'd say again, 117,000 people at 9 p.m. on CNN. Let's stop this.
Yeah, no, I had one of those content creators that was at the DNC was on this show yesterday. He has more viewers on his videos than a lot of cable stations have in that prime time slot. And this party was smart. They had a marketing firm that selected 250 of these content creators who have collectively probably hundreds of millions of viewers. And it had a significant impact. And I love what you said, Sharon, about when Trump talks directly to the people, it's brilliance. When Trump refuses to debate in the primary for the Republican primary, he doesn't need them. He's too far ahead. Why do it? But she's not afforded the same headlines when she makes decisions. But I'm so glad that the party has been so focused. She's going to sit down for the CNN interview. Okay, no problem. But I just hope that the campaign continues to do what it's doing, which is be led by the voters and the people and giving access to those individual journalists, those content creators who are some not affiliated with the campaign, and others who have been hand selected by the campaign. And speaking of folks who are not affiliated with the campaign officially, 200 Republicans who worked for Bush, Romney, and McCain endorsing Harris. And then at the convention itself, the Republican endorsements by some of those Republicans were some of the most powerful speeches that were given at the convention. And then obviously Oprah Winfrey, who said after the Obamas, she would not get involved in any other political campaigns, who is not a Democrat, who says she is an independent, and who graced us, who, surprise appearance at the convention because she wasn't slated in any of the media reports about who was going to be speaking that night. This election, Sharon, has caused very strange bedfellows, I would call. If you got George Bush and Romney folks riding with a Democrat.
Listen, because everything that's gone on the better part of the past decade has been so weird, it does make for strange bedfellows. I mean, I'm reading headlines. I couldn't believe it when I saw it on the television. George W. is still pretty quiet and pretty respectful of the process. But look at what's being reported about what he said about Trump's inauguration speech. Some weird S is what a former president had to say. They can't get with this guy anymore. It's time to go full force and quit him, whether it's Republicans for Harris raising money, others, the Lincoln Project. They have got to come together and say, listen, the enemy, it's my friend, that whole thing. They have got to stick together and say, at all costs, we got to defeat this brother. We got to defeat him now.
Yeah, so interesting. The DNC had grandson of Jimmy Carter, grandson of Kennedy, former presidents, former elected officials, former cabinet members. We didn't have that at the RNC. There were no former Republican presidents there supporting Donald Trump. What we come forward want to talk about Donald Trump's, his policies on policing and even abusive policing is going to be shocking to a lot of people. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
Right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. With the Democratic and Republican political conventions over now, a Black Information Network poll is asking if you are planning to vote in the upcoming presidential election. Go to BIN social platforms, Facebook and Instagram at Black Information Network or on X at BlackInfoNet to share your answer. We'll have the results tomorrow. Sentencing is being postponed for a Toledo, Ohio civil rights activist who has been convicted of misusing funds. Sir Major Page was arrested in 2020 after he misused money donated to a group called Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta. Authorities say Page used the funds to purchase luxury clothing, a house, drinks at bars and nightclubs, firearms, and more. Page has been found guilty of wire fraud and money laundering and was scheduled to be sentenced on Monday, but his sentencing has been postponed to the beginning of October. He faces 7 years in prison. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Back in Hollywood, a 35-minute traffic jam runs heavy on the 101 South between Gower Street and Mission Road. Santa Monica traffic is also building up to now an hour and a half on the 10 East between Lincoln Boulevard and the 5-101 split. East LA traffic is still running heavy on the 60 East at Indiana Street as a big rig is still blocking the right lane partially, causing heavy traffic from the 5. Sherman Oaks accident on the right shoulder of the 405 North before Ventura Boulevard remains heavy over 45 minutes from Venice Boulevard.
Nearly 3,000 teen drivers die in car crashes each year. Tire Rack Street Survival is designed to save lives. The one-day hands-on driving school gives teens experience in car control through exercises that include emergency braking and skid recovery. Find a class near you at TireRack.com/survive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Coco Gauff got off to a good start Monday in defending her U.S. Open tennis title. The 20-year-old African-American star defeated Varvara Gracheva of Russia in straight sets. Gauff, the number 3 seed at the U.S. Open, moves into Wednesday's second round. Gauff plays Tatiana Maria of Germany at 9 a.m. Gauff won her first Grand Slam title when she won last year's U.S. Open. The Dodgers and Angels are back in action tonight after a day off on Monday. The Dodgers are at home for the start of a 3-game series against Baltimore. The Angels are in Detroit to try to snap a 5-game losing streak. ESPN rounded up a few experts to rank the top 100 NFL players entering the 2024 season. Here's the top 5. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson, Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett, and Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition. With powerful new contributions from today's leading voices, this 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today. Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chucha's opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Niambi Carter are joining me in this hour. We're breaking down today's breaking and trending news. And in hour 2, we're going to be talking about Tim Walz. We're going to hear a lot of, get to see him a lot. He's going to be sitting down with VP Harris on Thursday for that interview with CNN. It's going to be the first time the two of them have sat down with the journalist to give an interview. And we're also going to see him a lot on the campaign trail. Now, a lot of folks are extremely excited about him. He's Coach Walz. He's a father. He's a public school teacher. His family, a family of teachers, and 3 of the people in his family married teachers. So talk about a deep bench of teachers. That is Governor Walz's family. But many people are bringing up his record and how he handled the protests in the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in his state. So we're going to be talking to 3 of those activists that were on the ground during the George Floyd protests in Minneapolis. These are folks who had firsthand experiences working with Governor Walz. We're going to get their take on this governor who is heralded as a great leader by some, but who's being trashed by Republicans who say he let the city burn, that he did nothing to quell protests, or not just protests, but riots, they call it, and destruction of property during the aftermath of George Floyd's murder. So make sure you stick around for hour 2. Sharon, I want to talk about Trump. Trump's coming out swinging. He is letting us know what he thinks about all things immigration. And now he's talking about police in America. And we know there's been this ongoing issue about curbing abusive policing. Under the first Trump administration, under Attorney General Sessions, we know that consent decrees, the investigations done by the Department of Justice, by the Civil Rights Division, pretty much shut down. Biden comes back in office. He restarts, reinitiates these kinds of investigations into police departments that have, high levels of police abuse claims and cases. 11 cases open right now, cases of police abuse in police departments where consent decrees are either in place or are being worked out. And this is under Kristen Clark, the civil rights head of the Department of Justice. But Trump is saying, when you reelect me, that department is going bye-bye again, and I'm going to be implementing stop and frisk to interrogate suspects. I'm going to be authorizing the giving of police departments of military type equipment, the militarization of police departments, which we know has been a big issue. So in light of that, including using the National Guard to fight crime in cities, and he thinks all cities are shitholes, Michigan, like Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois. Why do we see any level of African-American, particularly male support for Donald Trump? And I don't want to exaggerate the amount of it, but there is some, when we know if you are Black and if there's going to be stop and frisk and any of these policies that Trump is going to bring back, it's going to be you, your family members, your friends, your coworkers who are going to be on the receiving end of this abuse. Why are we supporting him anyway?
I don't have a degree in psychology, but I think that there are some people who are
I think,
angry.
Sharon, we lost your audio.
Oh, I should still be there. Mic check 1, 2. Can you hear me, Areva? Hello, hello. How about now?
You're good.
All right. And I really wanted to weigh in, so I was hoping you would be patient with me there with the audio. I apologize. I don't have a psychology degree, Areva, but I thought about this, and I think that some people are so angry and so lack hope that they are angry at the world and being somewhat belligerent. Others are not dialed in, and they actually, I was on this weekend, a radio program as a guest, and a woman called in and kind of scolded me and the others on the panel, saying that, why are we talking about 2025 when Trump has already told us it has nothing to do with him? And I had to let her know that, well, Trump lies about everything, and he's lying about this. And look at his own platform. I mean, you could lift it right off. It's disappeared from his website now, but it was there. That said, if they think times are without hope now and that they are desperate now, so many Americans through no fault of their own, you just wait till he gets back in there, because you made the point. You're up first with more of the trauma and the killing. What he is saying is not that we're not going to watch you as closely or expect certain things from you. He's saying you're going to be able to kill more Black people without even a second eye. You're going to be able to not even be harassed with this thing about what was in your mind. It's very easy to get out of it now. But once he's back, if he, God forbid, gets back, it will be more killing, more injury, more putting Black people in their place. I can't imagine how anyone doesn't understand that. You may not like the system we have currently. I don't care if you don't like her. There's one side that's going to give you a reprieve from this trauma, drama, and keep us going in the right direction. And there's the other side that we've already seen it. Okay. Get yourself a cup of bleach, have a seat, and get ready for more pain.
Yeah, this issue, the efforts by the Biden administration to, curb abusive policing, Dr. Carter, has not been met, embraced by many on the right. And in fact, Donald Trump is now saying he's going to end it. He says no more trying to end abusive policing. In fact, we're going to empower police officers and police departments to be more aggressive, because he says American cities are all shitholes, rat holes. You can't walk across the street in Detroit, he said, without getting raped, without getting robbed, without getting mugged, without even getting murdered. And he thinks our urban areas need to be cleaned up. And the way in his mind to do that is to bring in the National Guard, to bring in the military, to make them, embed them in our communities and have them use these aggressive stop and frisk and other types of aggressive actions he thinks that's the answer to crime or the answer to what he calls cleaning up cities, even though we know crime is down, even though there's no truth to this narrative that crime is up. But this should make every African American, every Latino, every person of color, this should be enough for you to say, I don't care anything about Harrison Walls. I don't even have to know who they are, but I know that this is going to be harmful to my family, my community, and we cannot support that. But we don't see folks having that sense of outrage. I mean, like, I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm outraged by this notion.
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying and what your previous question was getting to is this. When he says urban, he means Black. He does not any, mistake that he's using Detroit and Chicago, Washington, D.C., these majority Black cities as sort of his models of cities run amok, right? What he's saying is, I will take care of the Black people. The Black people and the Latino people that support him think that doesn't mean them. Thinks that his policies will only go after the bad people, because whether we like it or not, there is a strain of that even in marginalized communities where you want to marginalize people that you view as lesser than you. So the people who commit crimes, the people who don't work hard, the people who have babies that they can't support, all of the narratives, we've heard it. So his policies are for the bad Black people, not the good ones like me. I mean, it's also a lot of people who are aspirationally wealthy. Donald Trump isn't as wealthy as he says he is, but he's loads wealthier than most people that support him. He has convinced these people he's an everyman. He is not. He doesn't like people without money, but many of the people who support him think that somehow that they're rich enough for the Trump tax cuts. You're not. They think that the things that Trump is proposing that he wants to do with business is not going to support your local barbershop or our beauty salons or our small businesses, our restaurants, etc. It's not for us. So this kind of thinking, I think, really just pushes. I mean, it requires you to have a level of cognitive dissonance that I think, and it's also, let's be clear, there are some in our communities, I'm not speaking as a political scientist, I'm just speaking as a Black person who knows a lot of Black people, right? That think that this white man is going to be better because he is a white man. That what he says, whether it's the truth or a lie, is going to be more actionable, more credible, because he says it with confidence, and they don't like this Black woman, telling them what to do. Any woman, or this idea that this woman could be in charge and could be strong. They don't believe that she can be that. So there are still some, even though Donald Trump says these things, and he has, Black men in particular, young Black boys, in mind when he's talking about cleaning up our cities. I mean, he said DC is full of murder and graffiti, right? And rapists. Not true, but that's what he says, because that's who he thinks we are. That's who he thinks immigrants are. That's who he thinks Latino citizens are. That's who he thinks Asian people, well, not them so much, right? They're supposed to be good, but he doesn't have a great view of any of us that are not white and that are not wealthy, that are not men. And so I really want these people to take a step back and think about, the police won't be making a differentiation between the good ones and the bad ones. They see brown skin, they can swing that baton, and there will be no stopping. There will be no civil lawsuits. There will be no criminal charges.
Thank you. Hold on a second, Dr. Carter. I'm glad you mentioned that, because he wants to provide immunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Lawsuits. You triggered something for me. He wants absolute immunity. So folks who have been able to recover damages, and not that damages can bring your loved one back, but it does provide some relief in our civil system. Donald Trump says complete immunity for police officers who engage in this kind of conduct. I love what you said, Dr. Carter, when you said there are those in our community who want to oppress others, who think they are better than, and think that somehow because they are the good Black people, they are going to be immune from these policies. But yes, you're speaking truth to power when you say, when you're on those streets, or when you're stopped in your fancy foreign car that a white police officer begrudges you for having, and doesn't understand how you, young Black person, can be driving this $200,000 car, and you get pulled over, they're not going to be thinking of you as the good Black person. You are just a Black person that's in a car that shouldn't be, and you are doing better than them. And as Michelle Obama told the world, successful, well-educated that happens to be Black, that's an image, and that's a person that bothers Donald Trump and people that support him. When we come forward, I want to talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Is he now the new Elon Musk? Has he always been, Elon Musk in disguise? But social media, we got a problem on our hands. If we got Twitter, X, Facebook, and Instagram, heads of these departments, heads of these big companies, not departments, these big companies, feeling like they need to kiss the ring of Donald Trump. When we come forward, what's happening with Mark Zuckerberg? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Eva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Sharon. First, Twitter, now known as X, Elon Musk, has shown us who he is. And, we have to believe it. That's what we've been taught. But now Mark Zuckerberg kissing the ring of Donald Trump, writing a letter to Jim Jordan, a Judiciary Committee chair, longtime ally of Donald Trump, saying that he was pressured by Joe Biden during the COVID-19 pandemic to censor certain content on the site, and saying if he had to do it all over again, he wouldn't do it. He goes on Joe Rogan's podcast in 2022 and is complimenting Donald Trump. What is going on? And if Mark Zuckerberg, who controls Facebook and Instagram, has become a Trump ally, an open Trump ally, because chances are he's always been somewhat aligned, and now X is what's left.
People in power. Yeah, people in power, Reva, don't want to give that power up. And it's really sad. He is one of the most powerful people in the world because of that platform. And he does not want any interference with that. He was happy to allow, and I say allow, the Russians to interfere in our elections because he did nothing to stop it and they knew all about it. Okay. They're the ones behind the algorithms. They know about things. They ban people. And we see people on our own timeline saying, hey, wait a second. Why did I get banned for this? This is true. I don't even, and it is. So I don't know what's up with him saying the quiet part out loud these days. And Jim Jordan, of all people, who is a conspiracy theorist, a liar. He lies to his constituents. He lies to the American people. He lies on behalf of Donald Trump. Why he is writing this love letter to Jim Jordan, who I understand. Listen, they've called him to testify, but he's so dishonest. And I mean that in practice too. I mean it because they allowed these things to go on. And they did it when it was Hillary Clinton. It was allowed when Barack Obama was being attacked. And all of a sudden, he wants to flip the script and claim that, oh, I was pressured to take out a few comedy satire about COVID. COVID killed millions of people around the world. Okay? And that's a fact. And either you're complicit in that and you're complicit in kids who are committing suicide and being bullied because of online content, or you're not. They can do something about this. He doesn't want to. And I suspect that's the motivation.
Yeah, and Dr. Carter, what we know is that, well, we know because he said this, that there was this perception that these social media sites were left-leaning, that they were Democratic-leaning sites, and that the media, for the most part, was the liberal media. That was a narrative portrayed by Donald Trump, and that which caused many media outlets, including some cable stations and obviously social media sites, to say, let's overcompensate. Let's show the world we're not left-leaning. Let's start promoting content by, right-wing conspiracy theorists, even if it's, harmful to people, even if it'll lead to people dying in the process, like bogus information about COVID-19. And so now you have Mark Zuckerberg trying to put the Biden administration on blast and saying he was pressured and he wished he hadn't done it. And God darn it, I'm not going to do that again. And by the way, Donald Trump is a badass.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is a coward at the end of the day. He's a guy who got cool because he has a lot of money. And, even his stance that I'm not going to do anything to widen election access. You didn't give money to a campaign. You were helping people prevent COVID at voting places and things like that. And it's almost like, why are you worried about impressing these people, right? Why are you trying to then to assuage their fears that you are some sort of left-leaning or left-leaning outlet? I mean, just like you said, the information is there. It's about the algorithm and you get back what you go search for and all of that nonsense when we know they feed the algorithm, which feeds us. I mean, it's, I think what he wants is unfettered access to do whatever they want via these platforms. We already know they have a great deal of our information. We've given up a lot of privacy to them. They don't want regulation. In fact, our regulations are inadequate. They have not kept up with the speed of these platforms. And he's probably looking at what's happened to TikTok and thinking about, well, listen, if they can do that to TikTok, what might the government do to me? You mean restrict my ability to make money in some, even though, he has gobs of money. I mean, there is more money that he could spend in several lifetimes. And I think that's what this is about. I think he is a supreme capitalist. Yes, he might have done some good things here or there. I'm not going to dispute that, whatever. But to go up there and say this man is a badass because somebody shot at him, and you see how quickly that's not been discussed. He doesn't even talk about it anymore, walking around with basically a sanitary napkin on his ear for all of this time. But we don't even hear about that anymore. He's a badass because somebody tried to kill him. I mean, somebody tried to come to Kamala Harris's house, right? Where's that praise? I mean, Donald Trump is like the child who puts on his jacket by himself and people just clap because, he gets all these special cookies. So I think what's happening with Mark Zuckerberg, I think Meta needs a rebrand. I think Mark Zuckerberg is trying to bring in, because these people do have money to spend. They have eyeballs like the rest of us. They have ad dollars to spend. And I think that's what he's trying to do on the right. They're using Discord and Truth Social and other outlets. And I think he's just trying to corner the market on social media. But I really think If you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything. And so the fact that he would then do this about face and essentially, like, what could the administration make you do? Like, they were forcing your hand, like there's some gangsters. I mean, I just find the whole thing to be distasteful. I think it makes him look weak. I think it makes him look sad because people like the Joe Rogans of the world and the right, they don't respect him. It doesn't matter that he says he's not left leaning. They won't believe him just because you kiss the feet of a falling dictator. Doesn't mean that will save you in the end. I mean, this man called for the head of his own vice president. So, I mean, metaphorically speaking, not in real life, allegedly.
We're not sure if it was literal or figurative.
Thank you. Can I say this too? I know we're running.
The last word, Sharon. Go ahead.
Okay, I know we're running out of time, but it just occurred to me too, hearing the doctor talk, that Zuckerberg. Look, here comes the election interference and the bots. Okay, and he's putting up cover for how he's not involved in that. He's just allowing free speech. No, you probably already have been talking to Donald Trump or Jared or somebody on WhatsApp. My opinion. I don't want you to get sued, Areva. This is just my thought. Okay. So listen, he needs to have a seat. Just go have a seat wherever his mansion is these days. And I'm going to stop following him on all the apparatus because I'm tired of him posting all these wonderful things that money can buy when he's helping to destroy democracy. That is my view.
Yeah, that's what we all have to be so careful about. All of these media companies, whether it's social media, cable news, network news, print media, all of them have a motive. And that makes it so difficult for people who are not discerning, people who don't have a lot of time to figure out what the motive is. And they're feeding information to people. And people oftentimes don't know what's true, what's not true. And it can be very, very confusing. That's why it's our job, those of us who can discern the truth from the BS and who can help folks have a better understanding about what's happening in this world. We have to continue to raise our voices and make sure they are loud and the people in the back of the room can hear us. And that's why I'm so glad Sharon Reed and Dr. Niambi Carter, both of you are doing that on the regular. Appreciate you both spending some time with me this hour. In hour two, we're going to be talking about the Black women that helped to shape Tim Walz's politics after the death of George Floyd. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks.
Always a great conversation.
Yes, you all have a good evening. I'll see you next time.
You too.
Bye-bye.